Close your eyes, dear traveler of the night. The desert winds grow quiet, the stars shimmer above like lamps of eternity, and the echoes of an ancient people whisper softly through the silence. These are not only stories of war, but of sacred struggles, inner journeys that shape the heart, the mind, and the spirit. Let us drift back into the world of the Hebrews, a people whose faith was tested in battle, whose prayers rose from the dust of conflict, and whose courage became a song of healing for generations. Each tale is not a storm to disturb you, but a river to calm your thoughts, guiding you gently into sleep and into peace. If these stories bring you rest, let your spirit share a quiet blessing in the comments below. And if you wish for more gentle journeys into the sacred past, consider subscribing, so together we may continue to dream. Night settles softly across the ancient desert. The sand, once warm beneath the sun, now cools beneath a quiet veil of silver moonlight. Stars awaken one by one, scattered like lanterns across an endless sky. In this stillness, the earth itself seems to breathe, calm, patient, waiting. It is here in this hushed expanse that a story begins. Not of battles, not of kingdoms, but of a covenant, a promise whispered between humanity and the divine. A promise that shaped not only a people, but the rhythm of faith itself. The first wanderers moved slowly across the land. Their tents were simple, their steps guided by the stars above. Each night they lifted their eyes to the heavens, wondering at the vastness, the mystery, the silent presence that seemed to follow them. There was no temple of stone, no army, no grand city to claim. Only the desert, the sky, and the quiet stirrings of the heart. It was in this simplicity that the promise was born. A voice not thunderous but gentle. A calling not forced but inviting. To trust in something unseen, to walk in faith through uncertainty. The story tells of a man named Abram. He was not yet great, not yet called Abraham. He was simply a wanderer like the rest. Yet within him a spark glowed. A whisper reached him, saying, "Leave what you know and step into what is yet to be revealed." He gazed upon the night sky, and the stars shone brighter, as if responding. Countless points of light, each one a promise, each one a future unseen. He felt both small and cherished, humbled and lifted. This was the dawn of covenant, the beginning of trust. The covenant was not written on tablets of stone, nor carved into walls. It was written first upon the heart. It was sealed not with power, but with faith. Like a soft flame carried in the darkness, it asked only to be guarded, nourished, believed. Imagine the hush of the desert night, the tents glowing faintly with firelight, the voices of children quieting into sleep. And in the silence beyond the camp, a man listening not to the wind, not to the shifting sand, but to something deeper. A presence that breathed through all things. A presence that called him beloved. The wanderers were not mighty. They faced hunger. They faced fear. They faced the unknown road. But the covenant was their light. Each promise gave them courage to rise at dawn, to pack their tents, to take another step forward. The desert, though harsh, became a teacher. Every star taught them patience. Every sunrise taught them renewal. Every hardship taught them to lean upon the unseen hand, guiding them onward. It was not war that shaped them most deeply, but the sacred struggle to believe. Faith became their strength, and trust became their shield. In the covenant, there was both promise and sacrifice. Abram was told of blessings as countless as the stars, but he was also asked to walk in faith, even when the path was hard. This balance of gift and challenge, of light and shadow, wove itself into the heart of his people. To believe is to wander. To wander is to wait. To wait is to hope. And to hope is to see what others cannot yet see. So the Hebrews became a people not bound only to land or throne, but to a promise beyond time itself. A promise that drifted through their songs, their prayers, their dreams. Picture the night again. The air is cool. The wind moves gently through the grass of the hills. A shepherd lifts his eyes to the heavens. He sees not only stars, but a future, children yet unborn, nations yet unformed, a covenant yet unfolding. The promise was never about conquest. It was about belonging. It was about knowing that even in a vast, uncertain world, one is held, guided, and remembered. The covenant grew like a seed in the desert. At first fragile, tender, almost unseen. But slowly, through trial and patience, it became a tree, its roots deep in faith, its branches reaching toward eternity. The people carried it in their songs. They whispered it to their children. They held it close when fear pressed in. And though battles would come and kingdoms would rise and fall, the covenant itself remained. It was more than history. It was breath. It was life. It was the dawn of all that would follow. The desert nights continued. Generations passed beneath those same stars. Fires flickered in countless camps. Voices prayed in countless whispers. And always the covenant remained like a thread of light, weaving through the centuries. Each person who walked in faith became part of it. Each tear, each hope, each prayer, all were gathered into the promise. The sacred bond between the divine and the wanderer never broke. It only deepened, as rivers carve deeper valleys with time. And so, when you close your eyes tonight, imagine yourself among them. A traveler beneath the stars, the night sky stretching wide above you, the earth cool beneath your resting body, the soft crackle of fire nearby, and in your heart a gentle whisper, you are not alone, you are part of the promise. Feel the calm of the desert night, the stillness of the hills, the comfort of belonging. The covenant was not only theirs. It is for all who wander, all who seek, all who listen in the quiet. The dawn will come. The sky will soften to pale light. The stars will fade, one by one. The wanderers will rise again, fold their tents, and continue onward. And though the road may be long, the promise will walk with them, step by step, breath by breath. This was the dawn of covenant. Not an ending, but a beginning. Not a burden, but a blessing. A promise carried through time, through struggle, through silence. It still glimmers now, like a star that never fades. Rest now in that light. Let the stars above cradle you. Let the desert winds cool your thoughts. Let the covenant, gentle, eternal, bring you peace. The night is long but safe. The story is soft but strong. The promise remains. Let us drift onward, into the quiet of sleep, where the dawn will rise again, gentle as the first covenant, eternal as the stars. The night is calm once more. A cool wind moves gently across the wide expanse of sand. The stars above shine in silence, keeping watch over the desert as they have since the beginning of time. You rest here, in this timeless place, where every grain of sand seems to whisper stories of faith and struggle. The desert stretches endlessly. Its dunes rise and fall like waves of a quiet sea, golden by day, silver by night. It is a land of trial, a place where every step tests the spirit, where every breath asks for patience. Here the Hebrews wandered, not with swords raised high, but with hearts searching, thirsty for both water and meaning. When the covenant was first given, it was like dawn breaking over the horizon. But after dawn came the long day, and the day was not easy. The desert became their teacher, shaping them through thirst, through hunger, through waiting. The desert holds no fruit trees, no rivers flowing freely. Its silence is deep, and its stillness unyielding. Yet within this emptiness, the people were asked to trust, to believe that each sunrise would bring what was needed, even if they could not see it yet. Each day began with sand beneath their feet and sky above their heads. The journey had no certain end. The road unfolded like a scroll slowly unrolling, only a little at a time. There are stories of thirst. The people cried out when the water was gone, when their lips cracked, when their children longed for a drop of relief. And in their desperation, they were given streams from stone, clear, cool water flowing where none had been before. A reminder that even in barren places, life can appear. There are stories of hunger. The wilderness held no harvest, no gardens, no fields. Yet in the morning light, small flakes of manna covered the ground like dew. Gentle quiet enough for each day. A gift not stored in barns, but renewed with every sunrise. It taught them to trust not in their own strength, but in the faithfulness of the unseen. But more than thirst or hunger, they were trials of the heart. Doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. Fear rose like a storm over the camp. The people asked, "Why must we wander so long? Why must we suffer so much?" The desert is not only a place outside, but a place within. It mirrors the struggles of the soul. Every doubt becomes a dry valley. Every fear a scorching wind. And yet, the journey through it deepens the roots of faith. In silence, the Hebrews learned patience. In waiting, they learned strength. And in every hardship, they learned that faith is not the absence of struggle, but the courage to continue through it. By night, the people rested beneath a canopy of stars. The sky above was vast, endless, filled with points of light. Some nights, a pillar of fire glowed, guiding them through darkness. By day, a cloud shaded them from the burning sun, showing that they were never alone. Imagine lying there, the cool sand beneath your body, the desert breeze brushing your skin, and above you, the stars reminding you of promises greater than fear. Every star a memory, every star a word of comfort, every star a silent prayer. The desert was wide, but the covenant was wider still. The trials were not punishment, but shaping. Like clay softened and formed by a potter's hand, the people were being prepared. Prepared for belonging, prepared for purpose, prepared to carry the covenant into the future. A people shaped by ease may grow restless. A people shaped by struggle learn resilience. And resilience is like a well hidden deep in the earth, unseen, yet life-giving when most needed. The Hebrews carried that hidden well within their souls. Though they often forgot it, though they sometimes despaired, the spring was there. Every trial was carving deeper channels for faith to flow. Even leaders felt the trials. Moses, the one who guided them, often stood between their cries and the voice of the divine. He felt the weight of their fears, their complaints, their longings. He was tested, too, tested in patience, in humility, and trust. The desert does this. It strips away illusions. It reveals what lies beneath. It asks each traveler, what do you truly carry in your heart? Some carried fear. Some carried hope. All carried longing. And together they continued. The desert was not endless, though it seemed so. Every trial had a purpose. Every hardship held a hidden lesson. Patience was learned in waiting for water. Gratitude was learned in gathering manna. Faith was learned in walking day after day, with no clear end in sight. The desert became a mirror of life itself. For every soul at some time must cross its dry sands. Every soul must learn to wait, to trust, to hope when nothing seems certain. And just as the Hebrews found streams in the wilderness, so too does every heart find refreshment when it endures with faith. Picture again the camp at night. The fire burns low. Children sleep in the safety of their tents. The wind carries a low hum, as if the earth itself sings a lullaby. Above, the stars stretch forever, reminding each soul of a promise greater than hardship. The trials of the desert were real. The thirst, the hunger, the doubts. Yet they were also sacred. For through them, the people were shaped into something stronger, something steadier, something more deeply bound to the promise of the covenant. They entered the desert as wanderers. They would emerge as a people bound not only to land but to faith. And so the desert trials continue to speak, even now. They tell us that struggles are not without meaning. That silence holds wisdom. That waiting can grow the soul. They remind us that even in dry places, water flows. Even in hunger, daily bread can appear. Even in doubt, faith can grow like a flame that no wind can extinguish. The Hebrews wandered long, but they were never abandoned. The covenant never left them. Like the stars, it shone above them, even when clouds hid the light. Now, let the story fade gently into stillness. Let the desert night surround you, cool and calm. Feel the quiet winds brushing the sand, soft as a whisper. See the stars above, steady and endless. Every one, a reminder that promises endure. You too walk your deserts. You too face your trials. And like the Hebrews of old, you are never alone in them. There is always a spring hidden deep, always a flame that endures, always a promise that holds. Rest in that truth. Rest in that peace. The desert is vast, but peace is deeper. The trials may last, but comfort is near. Now close your eyes. Breathe softly, and let the story carry you into rest. Let us drift onward, past the sands, past the stars, into the quiet of sleep, where even trials become gentle dreams, and every wandering finds its rest. Night drifts quietly across the hills of Canaan. The sky is deep, painted with silver stars that shimmer like watchful eyes. A soft breeze moves through the grass, carrying the scent of earth and distant water. Somewhere far away, a quiet hum of voices rises steady, patient, like a prayer carried on the wind. The story of Jericho begins here, in this quiet space between fear and faith. It is a tale remembered not for the clash of weapons, but for the sound of trust echoing through the night. Not of power, but of surrender. Not of walls falling from force, but from faith breathed into sound. The city of Jericho was strong. Its walls were thick, standing high against the horizon like a crown of stone. They guarded the city with pride and certainty. For those inside, the walls meant safety. For those outside, the walls meant impossibility. The wanderers who had crossed deserts, rivers, and endless waiting now stood before these walls. They were weary from years of journeying, yet they carried something unseen, a faith that had endured the trials of hunger, thirst, and silence. And here at Jericho, that faith would be tested once more. The command given to them was strange. They were not told to fight, nor to strike the stone with iron. They were told to walk in silence, to walk with patience, to circle the walls like flowing water around a rock. Each morning at dawn they rose. The priests carried trumpets made of ram's horn. The people moved together in quiet steps, circling the city once, then returning to their camp. No shouts, no battles, only the sound of feet on earth and the low hum of wind passing through horn and breath. Day after day the same. Once around, then rest. The people of Jericho looked down from the walls, puzzled, perhaps even mocking. Yet the wanderers continued, steady, calm, like the river that wears down stone through time. The seventh day arrived. The dawn was still, the light soft upon the sand. This time, they rose not for one circle, but seven. 7 times they moved, step after step, horn after horn, breath after breath. The air grew thick with expectation. The silence deepened, as if the earth itself held its breath. And then the sound came. The horns lifted their voices, long, low, and haunting, like the cry of the wind through a canyon. A sound that trembled through the air, through stone, through heart. the people lifted their voices, not in rage, but in one great cry of trust. And the walls that had stood for generations, walls thought unbreakable, began to fall. Not shattered by swords, but by faith. Not crumbled by fire, but by sound. Stone by stone, the fortress gave way, until nothing stood between the wanderers and the land promised to them. It is easy to hear this story as a tale of battle. But listen deeper. This is not the sound of destruction. It is the sound of release. The sound of barriers breaking, of obstacles melting, of faith finding its voice. The walls of Jericho are more than stone. They are the walls within every heart. Walls of fear, walls of doubt, walls of sorrow that seem too heavy to move. And yet sometimes, they fall not when struck with force, but when met with trust. Sometimes they crumble when the Spirit sings. Imagine the silence before the sound. The people walking step by step. The sun above, the sand below, the walls looming ahead. No sword raised, no battle cry. Only the steady rhythm of faith moving forward. Now imagine the sound itself, the deep, trembling call of the horn. It is not loud in anger, but deep in meaning. It shakes not only the air, but the spirit. It says, the impossible is not greater than the promise. The stone is not stronger than faith. And so the walls fell. This story lingers in the heart because it speaks in symbols. The circle around the city becomes the circle of time, patience turning like a wheel. The horn becomes the breath of spirit, carried on air like prayer. The walls become the barriers each soul carries, waiting for the moment of release. The Hebrews were not asked to win with might. They were asked to trust, to wait, to breathe, to sing. And it was enough. Faith did what no army could do. By night when the camp rested, the stars shone above Jericho's ruins. The same stars that had shone over Abraham, the same stars that guided them through the desert. Each star a reminder that promises endure beyond stone, beyond walls, beyond fear. The people lay upon the earth, listening to the silence after the sound. No more shouting, no more horns, only the soft night breeze and the whisper of freedom. They had not only entered a city, they had entered a deeper trust. And so the story is remembered, not to glorify war, but to remind that walls can fall without battle, that barriers can crumble without force, that faith, patience, and voice can move what seems immovable. The horns of Jericho echo still if you listen, not in sound but in spirit. They echo in the quiet courage to keep walking, in the strength to sing, even when surrounded by walls, in the patience to circle what seems unending until the right moment comes. Now, let your mind rest gently on this image. You walk in silence beneath a vast sky. A wall rises before you, strong and unmoving. Yet you do not strike it. You walk. You breathe. You trust. Then comes the sound, deep and low, filling the air with calm strength. The wall before you softens, cracks, fades. Stone becomes dust. Dust becomes wind. And nothing stands between you and the promise of peace. The night grows deeper now. The stars shine brighter, the air cooler. The story of Jericho rests within you like a gentle song. Its lesson is not of noise or war, but of patience and trust. That sometimes walls fall when hearts believe. That sometimes strength is found in stillness. That sometimes victory is as soft as breath carried on a horn. Rest now with that sound. Let it carry you into calm. Let the walls within you grow lighter. Let the stars above you grow closer. The walls of Jericho have fallen, and in their place peace rises. Let us drift onward beyond the ruins into the quiet of the night, where sound becomes silence and silence becomes sleep. The night deepens, A quiet moon hangs above the hills, casting silver over stones and valleys. The stars scatter like gentle lanterns, each one glowing with patient light. The air is still, touched only by the faint whisper of wind moving across the grass. It is a time between stories, between dreams. And slowly, we drift into the age of the judges. This was a time when no king sat upon a throne. No golden crown shone beneath the sun. The people lived among valleys and fields, scattered across the land, bound together not by rule of law, but by memory of promise. And yet their hearts often wandered, like sheep drifting from a shepherd's path. When shadows gathered, when enemies pressed close, they would call out for help. And from their own people, a judge would rise. The judges were not rulers of wealth. They were not chosen for power or for lineage. They rose from the soil itself, simple men and women, stirred by courage, lifted by faith. They were voices in a time of silence. They were torches in a time of dark. Each story of the judges carries with it not only battle, but symbol. Each struggle is more than the clash of arms. It is the turning of hearts. For the true war was not against stone walls or iron spears. It was against forgetfulness. It was against fear. It was against the slow drift away from justice, from humility, from hope. The story of Deborah shines first, like dawn breaking over the horizon. She was a prophetess, a woman of wisdom who sat beneath a palm tree. People came to her, not because she commanded, but because her words were steady, like water flowing clear and cool. When the land fell under the hand of oppression, it was Deborah who called forth courage. She spoke to Barak, a warrior uncertain of his strength. "Rise," she told him, "for the path has already been prepared." And so, under her guidance, the people found victory. But the true triumph was not in swords raised high. It was in the voice of a woman who reminded them of the strength already planted within. Her song lingered in the air, soft and radiant, like a hymn carried by the wind. It was a song of remembrance, a call to return, a melody of hope. Then came Gideon, the hesitant one. He was a man who threshed wheat in secret, hiding from the eyes of enemies. His heart was unsure, his voice uncertain. And yet when the call came, he answered. Not with boldness, but with trembling. Not with certainty, but with questions. And still he was chosen. His army was not many, but few. Too few it seemed, for the task ahead. Yet it was through the few, not the many, that the light would shine. By the glow of torches hidden inside clay jars, by the breaking of those jars, and the sudden cry that pierced the night, Gideon's small band overcame a great host. The symbol was clear. Strength is not always found in numbers. Light shines brightest when the vessel is broken. And even the hesitant can become brave when faith kindles the heart. Later, the story of Samson moves like thunder across the plain. He was strong, stronger than any other. His hair long, his might legendary. He wrestled lions, struck down armies, and carried gates upon his shoulders. And yet, his struggle was not with enemies alone. It was within himself, the struggle of pride, of desire, of wandering from the vow that gave him strength. Samson's fall was heavy, yet even in his weakness, light flickered. In his final moments, blinded and bound, he remembered the source of his strength. He prayed. He leaned upon the pillars. And even in death, he became a symbol of renewal. For though his story ended in sorrow, his last breath was a turning back, a reminder that even the fallen can remember, even the broken can find one last act of courage. And then there was Jephthah, born of rejection, cast aside by his own. He knew the sting of abandonment, the ache of being unwanted. Yet when trouble came, the people who had cast him away turned back to him. He became their defender, their leader in battle. But his story, too, is tinged with sorrow, marked by vows too heavy to bear. His life whispers of the cost of rash words, the weight of promises spoken in haste. Yet even here, the struggle points to a deeper truth, that every leader, every judge was human. Fragile, flawed, and yet somehow chosen. The age of the judges was not an age of golden crowns. It was an age of wandering hearts and fragile faith. The people rose and fell like waves upon the sea. When they remembered, peace settled over the land like morning dew. When they forgot, shadows returned, and the cry for help rose again. And each time a judge came forth, not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as a reminder. A reminder that justice is more than law, that courage is more than strength, that hope is more than victory. Each judge was like a star, flickering for a time, guiding the people through night until dawn could rise again. Imagine this age now, as though you are standing within it. The fields stretch wide before you. The hills rise gentle, touched by starlight. The villages are small, their fires glowing softly in the dark. From time to time, fear stirs, like a shadow passing across the land. But in those moments, a figure steps forward. A judge, not crowned, not robed, but steady. Their voice carries across the night, reminding the people of who they are and who they could be. The struggles were never only with enemies beyond. They were within. The struggle to remain humble. The struggle to stay just. The struggle to remember that life is a gift and faith a path. The book of the Judges closes not with final victory, but with longing. For still the people wandered. Still their hearts strayed. Still they searched for something lasting. And so the stories pass on, from one age to another. Each judge like a candle lit for a time, burning until it fades, leaving behind the smoke of memory. But their lessons linger, even in the quiet of night. Deborah reminds us of wisdom. Gideon reminds us of courage and weakness. Samson reminds us of strength and its cost. Jephthah reminds us of the fragility of vows. And altogether, they remind us that even the flawed can shine. Even the ordinary can rise. Even the weary can lead. Now the stars above grow brighter, steady and patient. The moon drifts higher, soft and silver. The land rests, just as the people once rested after each struggle. It is peaceful now, as though the ancient cries have turned into lullabies. Let your heart rest with them. Let the struggles of the judges become soft echoes, distant and gentle. Not loud, not heavy, but quiet lessons carried by the wind. Each story, like each breath, comes and goes. Each struggle, like each night, fades into morning. The age of the judges is gone, yet its wisdom remains. It whispers still beneath the stars, reminding that courage is never far and hope never gone. So close your eyes and rest in that whisper. Let the palm tree of Deborah's wisdom shelter you. Let Gideon's torchlight flicker softly in the dark. Let Samson's final prayer linger as strength remembered. Let the stars above you shine, like the quiet judges of the night. Now drift onward, deeper into rest. For the struggles have ended, and peace has returned. Now rest as the stars return. The night is hushed. The stars are many. They scatter across the sky like drops of oil upon still water. A faint breeze drifts over the hills, carrying with it the scent of earth and stone. In the silence of the fields, the mind grows quiet and the heart grows tender. It is here, beneath this wide and endless sky, that we remember the story of a shepherd boy whose harp became a voice of peace. Before the crown, before the throne, before the weight of battles and kingdoms, there was a boy alone with sheep. The hills were his companions, the streams his refreshment, the stars his watchmen. He carried a staff to guide the flock, and a harp to comfort his soul. Each note he plucked rose into the night air like a prayer, soft and unhurried. The sheep listened, resting their heads against the grass. The winds carried the song across the valleys, and heaven itself seemed to lean closer to hear. David's heart was not born for war. It was born for song. Even when later battles would come, his strength would always return to this, the simple music of strings touched with devotion. The harp became his prayer, his refuge, his offering. There is a story told of how the troubled king, Saul, called for music. His heart was heavy, weighed down by storms within. His spirit found no peace, his nights no rest. And so the young David was brought before him, harp in hand. No words were needed, only the soft strum of strings, a melody gentle as flowing water. As David played, the shadows lifted. The king's restlessness grew still. The music wrapped around him like a cloak of calm. Each note was a breath of release. Each pause was silence filled with healing. The harp was not loud, not commanding. It whispered, it soothed, and it brought peace where none had been before. This is the secret of David's song. It was not meant to impress. It was meant to heal. Not to shout, but to comfort. Not to boast, but to remind the weary that peace is near. Even in the fields, alone beneath the stars, David's harp sang not only to men, but to the eternal. His psalms were poems of the soul, words woven into music like threads of light through cloth. He sang of rivers, of green pastures, of guiding hands. He sang of fear turned to trust, of night turned to morning. His words rose as prayers, but also as lullabies, calming the heart, steadying the breath. The harp became a bridge between earth and heaven, between sorrow and comfort, between silence and song. The shepherd boy grew into a warrior. Battles rose, enemies gathered, and his name became known across the land. Yet even when armies clashed, even when horns sounded and shields struck, David returned to his harp. For strength without peace cannot last, and the heart must drink from quiet waters if it is to endure the storm. In victory he played. In sorrow he played. When pursued and hidden in caves, he plucked his harp, letting the sound rise into darkness like small flames of light. When crowned and the world bent toward him, he still played, for his true throne was always within his song. Listen now in your mind as the harp plays. The sound is not sharp, not rushing. It is soft, like rain falling upon dry earth. It is steady, like the heartbeat of the world. Each note drifts out, lingering in the air before fading, leaving behind a hush deeper than before. This is the music of the Shepherd King. Not the clash of war, not the cry of victory, but the tender sound that says, "Be still, you are not alone, rest now." The harp does not demand. It invites. It does not shout. It whispers, and in the whisper there is healing. Think of David beneath the wide night sky. The flock rests around him. The hills are quiet, shadows stretching long and gentle. The boy's fingers brush the strings and the song rises, slow and clear. A bird shifts upon its branch. The wind pauses to listen. The stars glimmer with patience. This was the seed of his life, not power, not crown, but the quiet gift of song. And even when years brought trials, the seed remained. It grew into psalms that would echo across centuries. Words that spoke of green pastures and still waters. Words that lifted weary souls and carried them into peace. David's harp teaches that healing does not always come with answers. Sometimes it comes with silence held gently. Sometimes it comes with melody, soft enough to touch without pressing. Sometimes it comes with remembering that the soul is never far from rest. The shepherd's music was not perfect. His life was not free from mistakes, nor his path without shadows. Yet even so, the harp sang on. It carried sorrow as well as joy. It lifted confession as well as praise. It was the voice of a heart open, honest searching. And perhaps this is why it soothed so deeply, because it was real, because it was true. Imagine now that the harp is playing for you. The notes drift across the night, falling gently upon your heart. Each sound loosens the weight you carry. Each pause opens a space for peace to enter. You do not need to struggle. You do not need to reach. The music comes to you, like the wind, like the stars, like the breath. The harp says, rest. The harp says, peace is here. The harp says, you are safe beneath the wide and endless sky. The Psalms of David are still sung, still whispered, still remembered. They are prayers of the weary, songs of those who seek rest. They carry rivers, mountains, valleys, and skies within them. They remind us that no place is too far for peace to enter, no shadow too deep for a song to reach. One psalm speaks of walking through valleys of shadow, yet fearing no harm. Another of lying down in green pastures, led beside still waters. Another of lifting eyes to the hills, seeking help that comes from beyond. Each psalm is like a note on the harp, strung together into a melody that calms the restless soul. And so David, remembered for battles, is also remembered for song. His strength was not only in his arm, but in his heart. His victories were not only in war, but in music that healed. For armies may pass, and crowns may fade, but the harp remains. The psalm remains. The song remains. Now the night grows deeper. The stars glow steady, guardians of the sky. The moon drifts higher, pale and kind. The wind is quiet, the earth still. Listen once more to the harp of David. Its strings are touched by gentle hands. The sound is soft, patient, full. It moves like water over stone, like wind through leaves, like breath through silence. Let it carry you. Let it soothe you. Let it remind you that peace is not far. The harp of David is still playing, even now, in the quiet corners of the soul. A song of rest, a song of trust, a song of healing. Close your eyes and drift with it. Let the green pastures of his psalm stretch wide before you. Let the still waters of his music calm your breath. Let the stars above you shine like notes upon the night. The shepherd plays. The king rests. The harp sings. And now so may you. Now drift onward. Now rest as the stars return. The night is quiet now. The stars hang like lanterns in the wide heavens. Their glow falls slowly upon the earth, as if each beam were a thread of peace, weaving the world into rest. Far below, the hills of Jerusalem lie in silence. The air is still, save for the hush of a small breeze. It moves softly through olive trees, carrying the faint fragrance of blossoms and earth. It is a night when time itself seems to pause. It is a night when memory drifts back to the golden age of Solomon. Long had the people known struggle. Long had they wandered, battled, and waited for their promised peace. But in Solomon's reign, there came a pause, like the stillness after rain. The land exhaled. The wars of his father David were quiet now, and the sound of swords grew faint in memory. Instead of battle cries, there rose the gentle hum of work. Stone against stone, wood against wood. The steady rhythm of building, not breaking. The people's strength turned from tearing down to lifting up. And at the center of it all was the dream of a temple. Not a fortress, not a throne, but a dwelling for the holy. A house of peace, built in golden light. By day, the sun shone bright upon the city, casting its warm glow upon white stones. By night, the moon poured silver across scaffolds and beams. Men carried cedar wood from distant mountains, fragrant and strong. Others shaped stones so smooth they seemed like water frozen in time. Every piece was measured with care, as though each carried its own quiet prayer. It was said that the sound of hammer and chisel never broke the stillness of the Temple Mount. Stones were shaped in quarries far away, so that when they were brought, they fit together in silence. The temple rose not in noise, but in calm. A sanctuary formed in quietness. It stood not only as a place for offerings, but as a symbol of what peace can create. Walls to hold song, courts to hold prayer, a doorway through which weary souls might find rest. Solomon was not only a king, but a seeker of wisdom. He asked not for riches, nor for power, but for understanding. And so his reign became a time when wisdom was cherished, when the searching heart was honored. He spoke of life as threads woven together, of seasons that rise and fall, of times to plant and times to gather, of times to weep and times to laugh. These words drifted like gentle rivers, guiding hearts back to balance. For in wisdom there is calm, and in calm the temple found its soul. Under his guidance, the temple became more than stone and gold. It became a mirror of harmony, each pillar, each gate, each song of the Levites, breathing the rhythm of peace. When the temple opened, the people came from far and wide. They brought their gifts, their prayers, their longings. The air was filled with incense, curling upward like soft smoke that carried whispers to the heavens. The sound of harps and voices rose together, not loud but steady, like a tide returning to the shore. Families entered with hope. Children gazed upward at the golden walls, their eyes wide with wonder. Elders stood quietly, remembering journeys long past, their hands folded, their hearts steady. It was a place where every soul, weary or strong, could find shelter in the stillness of sacred light. The temple became a lamp, glowing not only in Jerusalem, but in the hearts of those who carried its peace homeward. Inside, gold gleamed softly in the flicker of oil lamps. But it was not the gold itself that shone. It was the way light touched it, warmed it, made it gentle. Cherubim stretched their wings over the inner room, carved not with harshness, but with grace. Their presence was not to frighten, but to guard, like gentle watchmen of the night. In that quiet chamber, behind veils of woven blue and scarlet, the ark rested, the symbol of covenant, the promise of nearness. Though hidden, its presence filled the temple, like fragrance that lingers unseen, like music that hums beyond hearing. And so, the temple was not only a building of stone. It was a heart made visible. It was a breath given form. It was peace standing still. From Solomon's temple, a lesson drifts across time. That peace itself is a sacred act. That when hands choose to build instead of break, the world takes on a golden glow. The temple was not forever. In ages to come, storms would rise, walls would fall. But the memory of its peace endures. It whispers through history like a soft wind at dusk. It reminds all who listen that moments of stillness are holy, and that what is built in peace lasts far longer than what is torn in anger. Now let the temple's story settle into your heart. Imagine its courtyards in twilight, the stones cooling beneath your feet, the lamps glowing softly. Hear the quiet song of a harp in the distance, strings touched gently, notes flowing like water. The air is calm. The night sky above the temple spreads wide and deep. Each star is a prayer, each breeze a blessing. You are safe within these walls of peace. No battle stirs, no fear intrudes. Only the golden hush of a world at rest. As the chapter of Solomon's temple closes, let the stillness stay with you. Let it drift like a gentle tide into your dreams. For even as the world may stir beyond, here, in the glow of this temple, you remain cradled in calm. Now rest as the stars return. Now breathe as the lamps grow dim. And let us drift onward into the next quiet story that waits beyond the horizon of sleep. The night has deepened. The stars shine above like watchful eyes, each one steady, each one tender. A soft wind moves across the earth, carrying the scent of distant rivers and dry earth. It is a wind that tells stories of journeys, of loss, and of hope that lingers even in sorrow. We drift now into a time of exile, a time when the land of promise lay behind, and the people wandered in foreign soil. It was a time when battles were no longer with swords, but with heavy hearts. The struggle was not against enemies of flesh, but against despair itself. They had once walked the hills of Jerusalem, where the temple stood in golden light. But now the gates were broken, and the sacred court stood empty. The people were led away, their steps slow, their eyes turned back, longing for what was lost. They came to rivers they had never seen before. The waters were wide, the banks lined with strange trees. Here they sat in silence, remembering. They hung their harps upon the branches, for the songs they once sang felt too heavy for their lips. And yet, even in that silence, the prophets spoke. Their words rose like sparks in the dark. Not loud, not fierce, but steady, like lanterns lit in the night. One voice said, "Comfort, comfort my people." It was a gentle call, like a mother soothing a restless child. It did not erase sorrow, but it wrapped around it, like a shawl against the cold. The prophet reminded them that valleys would be lifted, that crooked paths would be made straight, that every rough place would one day be smoothed. Even in exile, the promise of return glowed faintly, like a star that refuses to go out. And so hope became their secret song, not always sung aloud, but held quietly in the heart. A melody of trust, even when the world around them was broken. Another prophet sat by the river, far from home. The sky opened before him, and visions came like flowing fire. Wheels within wheels, living creatures with wings, light brighter than storm or flame. He spoke of glory that could not be confined by walls of stone. The people listened, weary and amazed. Could it be that the Holy One was not bound to a ruined city? Could it be that even here, in a land of exile, the Spirit was near? The vision became a seed of comfort. For though the temple had fallen, the presence still moved among them. Though they were far from home, they were not abandoned. Another voice spoke softly of hearts. He told them that the day would come when their hearts of stone would be made tender again. A heart of flesh, warm, living, able to feel. A heart that would know the way of peace, not through law alone, but through love written within. This promise was like water in a dry land. It sank deep unseen, but it nourished roots hidden beneath the soil. Even in exile, life was preparing to bloom again. Still, there were nights of tears. The people wept as they remembered Zion, the city of their songs. They asked how they could sing in a foreign land. And yet, even their laments became a kind of prayer. Tears are not empty. They water the soul, they soften the ground of the heart. And from their sorrow, new songs would rise, songs not only of loss, but of endurance, of trust, of gentle faith that the dawn would come. The prophets did not end the exile. They did not open the gates with their hands, but they carried a different kind of strength. They reminded the people that even in the farthest place, the eternal was near. They spoke of streams in the desert, of dry bones rising, of a shepherd who would gather the scattered. They told of a covenant that could not be broken, a bond that distance could not undo. Their words were not loud like thunder, but soft as rain falling on weary soil. They soaked slowly into the people's hearts, giving them strength to endure. Exile is not only a place of sorrow. It is also a place of deep remembering. It is a night that teaches the value of dawn. It is a silence that teaches the power of song. The prophets carried this hope like a river. Even when unseen, it moved beneath the ground, shaping valleys, feeding roots. And in time, that river would lead them home again. Now, as you listen, let the story of exile become gentle in your mind. Do not hold the sharpness of sorrow. Hold instead the quiet flame of hope. Imagine the rivers of Babylon, flowing softly beneath the stars. Hear the hushed sound of water, steady and calm. See the harps resting on branches, their strings silent but waiting. The prophets speak in whispers here. Their voices are not lost in the wind. They settle into the heart like warm embers, glowing softly in the night. And you too may rest in that glow. For the story tells us that even in places of loss, peace is not gone. It waits like dawn behind the horizon. It waits like stars shining behind the clouds. Let the voices of the prophets carry you now. Let their soft words drift through you like a lullaby. You are safe in this story, safe in its promise of gentle return. Now rest as the stars return. Now breathe as the rivers flow. And let us drift onward to the next quiet chapter that waits beyond the veil of sleep. Night folds gently over the hills. The sky is dark, yet full of quiet promise. The stars shimmer like scattered pearls upon velvet. And in the stillness of that deep night, a single candle glows. Its flame is small yet steady. It does not leap with wild fire, nor tremble with fear. It burns softly, carrying warmth into the cool of the night. It is here that the story of the Maccabean flame begins. Not with armies and clashing metal, but with light that lingers in shadow. Long ago, the Temple of Jerusalem grew silent. Its courts were emptied, its lamps extinguished. Foreign hands had touched its sacred stones. The air that once rang with prayers now lay heavy with sorrow. The people felt as though the world itself had dimmed. The holy fire, once a symbol of unbroken faith, seemed gone. Yet in the heart of silence, there stirred a gentle longing. A longing not only for land, not only for freedom, but for the return of light. The prophets had spoken of light before. Light that shines in darkness. Light that cannot be quenched by shadow. And so, though the people were weary, they carried that hope like a lantern hidden under cloth, waiting to be revealed. In a quiet village, far from the proud walls of the city, a family rose with courage. Not kings, not great warriors, but a family with hearts set on faith. They were called the Maccabees. Their name became like a whisper of strength, passed from lip to lip in secret places. They did not fight only with weapons. They fought with devotion. They fought with prayers uttered in dark corners. They fought by holding on to their sacred songs, their ancient ways, even when the world told them to forget. And so, the struggle was not just for land. It was for memory. It was for the flame of faith that must never be lost. After years of hardship, the Maccabees returned to the temple. They walked slowly through its broken courts. The silence pressed against them, but they did not despair. They looked for oil to relight the lamp, the eternal flame that must never go out. Only one small vessel remained, sealed pure, untouched, enough for but a single day. Yet they lit it, for even a short light is better than no light at all. The flame rose, quiet and golden. It glowed against the stone walls. It filled the temple with warmth. And though the oil was little, the flame did not die. It burned not for 1 day, but for 8. This was not the roar of fire consuming forests. It was not a blaze that frightened or destroyed. It was a gentle, steady light. A flame that whispered, "Faith endures. Even the smallest light can outlast the longest night." The miracle was not only in oil that lasted. The miracle was in hearts lifted. It was in the return of songs to lips that had been silent. It was in the quiet courage of a people who refused to let darkness be their end. The flame became a symbol, soft yet unbreakable. And each year, candles are lit to remember. Not to boast of battle, but to honor the light that survived when all else seemed lost. The Maccabean flame speaks gently across time. It tells us that even the smallest act of faith carries weight. A single prayer whispered in secret. A single song sung when no one listened. a single candle lit against the vast night. Shadows may seem endless. Nights may stretch long and heavy. But light does not measure itself against darkness. It shines because it must. It glows because it is its nature. And so, the flame of the temple teaches patience. It teaches trust. It teaches that sacred endurance is itself a victory. Close your eyes now and imagine that small flame. See it flicker gently in the still air. Feel its warmth brush against your skin. It is not harsh, not demanding. It is steady, calm, a soft guardian of peace. Now imagine that same flame within your heart. A light that does not go out when the world grows heavy. A light that keeps glowing, even when sorrow tries to smother it. A light that belongs not to armies nor to kings, but to the quiet soul that remembers. This is the true flame of the Maccabees. A flame carried within, passed down, never lost. As the story settles, let your breathing slow. Let the flame glow softly in your thoughts. You do not need to hold it tightly. It does not waver. It remains gentle and sure. The temple of long ago stands quiet now, but in memory its lamps still shine. The hills rest under the starlight. The people sleep with hope beside them. And the flame endures, carrying peace into every shadowed place. Now let the Maccabean flame guide you into rest. Let it glow softly in your dreams, a quiet reminder that light survives. No matter how long the night, the dawn will come. No matter how heavy the dark, the flame still burns. Now rest as the stars return. Now drift as the candle glows. And let us move onward into the next gentle chapter, where the story will continue to cradle your spirit in peace. Night settles like a veil, smooth and gentle, wrapping the earth in silver shadow. The stars linger above, patient and quiet, like ancient witnesses of forgotten prayers. The air is still, touched only by the slow hum of the wind, brushing against stone walls and empty fields. It is into this hush that we enter, a space between stories, between the roar of battle and the sound of fulfillment. These were the silent years. Years when voices of prophets no longer echoed, when visions grew faint, and the people looked to the heavens and wondered if the heavens still looked back. Yet even silence has a music. It is soft, like the turning of seasons, like the breathing of the earth in its long rest. It is quiet, yet deep, a reminder that waiting itself is a kind of faith. Generations lived and passed, their days lit by the simple work of fields, the warmth of firelight, and the reciting of old stories. Parents told children of mighty kings and deliverers, of voices once heard in desert and temple. The children listened with wide eyes, though the voices no longer spoke in their time. Still, the stories lingered, like embers that glow long after flame has gone. The waiting was not empty. In every prayer whispered before dawn, in every candle lit at night, hope remained. It was a small flame, carried not in grand temples, but in the humble rooms of families who refused to let memory fade. The silence stretched across centuries, yet in that quiet, a strength was born. For silence teaches patience, and patience teaches trust. Imagine now a small village, resting beneath pale starlight. The houses are simple, built of stone and clay, their doors closed against the cool winds of night. Inside, a family sits close, sharing bread, their voices low, their hearts steady. On the wall hangs a small lamp, its oil burning slowly, softly. It is not a grand fire, yet it is enough to hold back the darkness. This was the lesson of the waiting years, that even the smallest flame is not in vain, that even when heaven seems silent, the heart can still shine. Children grew up hearing these lessons. They learned not only of mighty warriors and kings, but of quiet endurance, of how strength is not only in the sword, but in the spirit that refuses to break. Centuries can feel heavy, yet to the earth, They are but the passing of shadows across stone. And so the waiting continued. Empires rose and fell, their banners fluttering, their rulers claiming power. Yet the people still looked beyond palaces and armies. They looked to promises that were older than any crown, older than any city. The silence became their teacher. It whispered of the strength hidden in stillness, of the beauty that grows when one does not hurry. Like a seed beneath soil, unseen, unheard, yet alive. Waiting, too, is a kind of life. It is the life of roots before the blossom, the life of dawn before the sunrise. Some nights the silence felt heavy. The stars seemed far, the promises faint. But in those very moments, the soul discovered how to breathe deeper, how to trust the unseen, how to believe that the turning of time is not an ending, but a weaving, slow and sure. The elders told the young, the silence is not the end of the song. It is the pause between notes where the heart learns to listen. And so they waited through winters and springs, waited through rulers and wars, waited as the world turned. Slow and steady, the silent years remind us that hope is not only for moments of victory, it is also for nights when nothing stirs, when no answer comes. Hope is the gentle fire that asks for no witness, yet burns faithfully. It was in these long years that the people learned the art of remembering, to hold memory as one holds water in cupped hands, to guard it carefully so that none of it spills away. Every prayer whispered, every song remembered, every story retold became a thread. Together, these threads wove a fabric strong enough to wrap entire generations, so that even in silence, they were never truly alone. The world itself seemed to join in this great stillness. The rivers flowed quietly. The trees stretched upward with patient grace. The mountains stood without moving, yet they endured all storms. Creation itself seemed to say, waiting is not weakness. It is strength hidden in gentleness. And so the people learned to walk through their days with calm hearts, their footsteps steady, their hopes tucked gently like seeds in earth, waiting for their time to rise. Now imagine yourself among them. You sit by the fire, its glow soft upon the walls. Outside, the sky is deep and endless, stars scattered like distant candles. You hear no voice, no trumpet, no great sign. Only the stillness. And yet the stillness feels alive, as though something unseen watches and waits with you. The silence is not empty. It is filled with promise. It is a cradle, rocking gently until the time is right. Years became decades. Decades became centuries. Yet the flame was not forgotten. It lived in every quiet act of faith. It lived in the breath of prayer, in the kindness of a stranger, in the patience of waiting hearts. And when at last the silence gave way to sound, when the long pause opened into song, those who had waited understood. For silence had prepared them. Patience had strengthened them. Faith had carried them. Now rest in this thought. Even in stillness, life is moving. Even in silence, the story continues. The waiting years are not wasted years. They are the gentle shaping of the soul, like stone carved slowly by the wind. As you lie beneath your own night sky, let the silence cradle you. Let the quiet remind you that waiting is its own kind of sacred path. There is no need to hurry, no need to fear. The stars above are patient, and so may you be. Let us drift onward now, into deeper rest. The silence is safe. The waiting is holy. And the night is long enough for dreams to take root. Now rest as the stars return, and the silent years fold gently into sleep. Night folds itself softly across the land, like a shawl of velvet laid upon weary shoulders. The stars glimmer with their quiet patience, each one a candle in the vast expanse. The air is calm, still enough to hear the gentle stirring of leaves, the slow rhythm of distant waters. It is here in this deep stillness that memory becomes a companion. Not sharp, not heavy, but soft as the glow of oil lamps in the twilight. The Hebrew people carried memory as one carries a sacred vessel, sometimes heavy, sometimes fragile, but always precious. They remembered battles and victories, exiles and homecomings, grief and joy. Yet memory did more than keep the past alive. It healed. It wove wounds into wisdom. It turned sorrow into song. Imagine the hush of an ancient gathering. Families sit together in a circle, firelight flickering against their faces. The elders begin to speak, voices steady, words slow and measured. They do not tell stories only to entertain, but to preserve, to bind, to heal. Children lean against their mothers, listening as tales unfold of seas parted, deserts crossed, and voices once heard upon mountains. Though the children were far from those times, through memory, they belonged to them. Through memory, every exile was shared, every triumph felt, every prayer whispered again. This act of remembering was itself a medicine. It reminded them that though wounds were real, survival was greater. That though despair visited, hope endured. The people did not forget, but in not forgetting they found strength. Songs were born of this remembering. Songs of lament, soft as the cry of the dove. Songs of praise, rising like incense in the night. Each melody carried more than words. It carried the weight of generations. The Psalms became rivers of memory, flowing from one heart to the next. They were not only poetry, but balm. They carried sorrow without letting it crush. They carried joy without letting it fade. When voices lifted in unison, memory became communal. The pain was shared, and so it was lighter. The hope was shared, and so it was brighter. Even in exile, far from the land of their ancestors, memory kept them whole. Foreign streets, foreign tongues, foreign customs surrounded them. But within, they carried their own world, woven of remembrance. Every prayer whispered by the rivers of Babylon was a thread that tied them back to who they were. This was how they endured. Not by forgetting, but by remembering with tenderness. Every scar became a mark of survival. Every wound, once retold in prayer, became a lesson carved into the soul. The act of remembering turned despair into resilience. It was like pressing seeds into the earth. What seemed like lost wood in time, rise again as life. Consider how memory rests not only in words, but in rituals. A cup lifted, bread broken, candles lit against the dark. Each small act was a return, a bridge between the past and the present. Ritual was memory given shape, and in repeating it, healing came. A rhythm that steadied the heart, a reminder that even when everything else changed, the sacred thread remained unbroken. Generations passed, but the rituals endured, carrying memory forward like a lamp passed from one hand to another. And with each passing, the light never dimmed. It grew steadier, clearer, kinder. There is a deep truth hidden within memory. To remember is to gather all fragments and hold them gently. Not to erase sorrow, but to place it alongside joy, so both may rest in balance. The Hebrew people did this with care. They spoke of their ancestors not only in triumph, but in struggle. They honored not only victories, but wounds. In this way, their history became a living teacher, not a forgotten shadow. When they recalled the bitterness of exile, they also recalled the sweetness of return. When they sang of battles lost, they also sang of strength found. Through remembrance, the soul was made whole. Now imagine yourself drifting into that circle of memory. The fire glows softly. The night is calm. The stars watch quietly. An elder begins to sing, voice low, words ancient. You feel the weight of history, but not as a burden. It feels like a blanket, warm and steady, covering you with belonging. The melody rises and falls, as if the song itself is breathing. Each note carries sorrow, but also healing. Each word carries struggle, but also survival. And slowly you realize that memory is not a chain, it is a bridge. It connects you to those before and steadies you for what is to come. Healing through memory is like the mending of cloth. Tears are not erased, but stitched with care. The fabric remains, strong and whole, marked but beautiful. So it was with these people. They did not deny the ache of their past. They wove it into prayers, into songs, into teachings. And in weaving, the ache softened. In weaving, the wound became wisdom. Even today, the stars above hold memories, each one a witness to the long journey of humankind. Silent, steady, shining, they remind us that nothing is truly lost. Every prayer spoken lingers, every song sung remains. And so healing continues, not only in great miracles, but in the quiet remembering of those who came before. Every story retold becomes a bond. Every memory cherished becomes a light. Now let your own heart rest in this truth. The past is not an enemy, nor is it a prison. It is a teacher, patient and wise. Through memory, your wounds too may soften. Through memory, your own struggles may shape into strength. Rest in the rhythm of remembrance. Let it cradle you like gentle waves, steady and slow. For memory is not meant to trouble, but to heal. Not to weigh you down, but to lift you gently toward peace. And so this chapter closes, as softly as it began. The fire burns low, its light flickering softly on stone walls. The stars still gleam, silent keepers of countless stories. And you too carry memory within you, not heavy, not sharp, but soft, like a flame that warms the night. Let us drift onward now, deeper into rest. The wounds have been remembered. The songs have been sung. The healing has begun. Now rest as the stars return, and memory folds gently into dreams.